Alice Michael Sear.
Igniting purpose, right?
Doing it.
Yeah. So we're in India. See this beautiful, amazing temple behind us? There you go. We're hitting it right as the sun's going down, so we actually can sit out here and enjoy this for a second with you guys. We want to share a quick little message. I mean, we've had so many.
We have endless messages.
Yeah,
we've been struggling with doing a video because there's we're either in process
so in it.
And just integrating,
literally the
or
Shakti,
we're doing the stuff.
Shakti
We're doing
has been so
amazing.
strong. We're dropping in and out of consciousness, and so then we're trying to catch breath to integrate, and then we're in something again. And yet there's been so many things and truths. I know I'll be doing a video for the Best Life Tribe soon and a training on all these deep truths. But we found we had a minute. We have a minute between our next process because we're here at the Oneness Field. It's called the Oneness Field.
Yes, Oneness Field Ecom.
And this, I mean, we can get into it, but it's this whole design. This temple was designed with specific intention and
energy grids.
Yeah, to dope out all your dopeness, right? That's the best description my brain is coming up with
Straight
right
Marci
now.
language. Love it. Love it.
It's not just what was the site I was thinking about buying the other day?
Oh yeah, we were talking about
ConsciousLink.com.
I really think one of our friends has that, by the way.
We're always wearing Conscious Blink.
Lots of bling.
Anyways, yes, we're always wearing Conscious Blink. Anyways, so we came here after our experiences at the ashram and with Amma, who's an avatar, because we found out about this place and wanted to dive into a couple days of integration with
shout out to our friend Alex Moscow.
Yes,
gave us the recommendation.
Yeah, that's right.
But originally we were going to go to Oneness Academy, but it's not open to just the visiting public, so we're here.
But if you stay in their campuses, you can come to the meditations, the activations all day. So they do all these light body activation enhancements, and so this was something interesting. As we got here and kind of felt it's just you're just how does this, what's happening here? How does this thing operate? There was no context or direction. And what was interesting is we started to watch and question a lot of people following along, just kind of doing the things that they saw other people doing, right? And so then today we were laughing at how finally someone in between the meditations that leads and guides some of these things was saying, hey, they noticed a couple behaviors where they're everyone's literally 50 to 100 feet from where they're honoring the divine and they're having these activations to the door. They're all backing out,
walking
100 feet
out of the room.
And I thought that's I've never seen that before.
It's
that's kind of
interesting.
interesting. It's silly, but interesting. And they're starting to say, you doing this. They're we never told you to do any of that stuff. Someone decided to do it, and guess what? The whole crowd, it's one by one. So people come and they see someone else do something, and we saw this interesting reflection, right, of how this shows up in everyday life, in business, especially. I think because I get so many people how do you do this, what you do, when you're not doing all the things everyone else is doing? And it's because we're to run a business, I have to do it this way. To be online, I have to do it this way. To do these things, I have to do it that way because that's how other people are doing it. And it's kind of silliness when we got a day. We're we thought that was silly.
I mean, when she called it out, there were certain things that I got sucked into as well, and certain things I was I'm not doing that. That just didn't feel. I wasn't sure about it. It didn't feel right.
But you tapped into you, and you're what feels good for me?
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone was getting down and laying completely flat on the floor, and we're we did our normal honoring.
And in my mind, they didn't give us any context. To me, I was well, I don't think I have to do that because no one's telling me I have to. So if I can choose not to, I think that's okay too. So that was interesting. Yet there were other things that did feel good, and I was witnessing, and I decided to follow along and give that a try.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until like Marci was saying when one of the kind of the teachers here was we notice people are doing this. You don't really have to do that, and please don't do this, and it's holding things up. And it was just really interesting to kind of laugh at how easy it is for people to witness someone else doing something and then without context quickly follow along. Just get in line.
Yeah.
Just get in line.
Yeah.
Without asking for context or clarity, without trusting your own instinct. It's so easy for us to follow the leader and not tap into what feels good or even ask questions as to why are we doing something, right? So just interesting to witness.
It's why I love context. I always say the context helps you have understanding. Understanding raises your level of frequency because it's just then we can understand all aspects, all things. Then we can see things for the truth and the reality they are versus the hologram illusion based on our perception just like seeing somebody do something and all of a sudden you have a perception and you don't question it, you don't ask, you don't create clarity. So we're always usually operating out of chaos or confusion. And it reminds me of, I mean, I was raised on a farm, and I remember my dad like saying things like, you know, I don't remember the analogy, but it was like, you know, following a sheep off the cliff. Like if one sheep like jumps off a cliff, the whole herd follows it. Like they don't stop and question. And that is so a perfect reference to our society and how we've been you know, so afraid of rejection, of being seen, of being heard, of you know, standing out. And the crazy thing is, you're fucking meant to stand out. I love that I can say fuck in front of a temple, because that's just how I roll, apparently.
Standing out, apparently.
Right? See? So it's like, yep, you know, whatever comes through that feels good for me, and I can own that. And so it's like, in our society, we've been so trained to stay hidden and be afraid that we're literally doing these things, just like in here, that are almost like wasting our energy because they're a mask. And when you take off the mask, you have all the energy available to be you and to do the things that feel good for you. When you tap and you go, interesting, like what does feel right for me and feel good for me? And that's actually the way that we're in divine creation moment by moment, because we're saying what feels good versus my head, Maya, trying to think it through.
The Maya is the illusion.
Yep. So we're thinking it through and trying to, which again, guys, there's no such thing as logic anyways, because what you could be thinking and perceiving is true for you, and someone else it's not true. So it's like logic doesn't exist anyway. So we get to tap back into our feeling center and the truth of who we are. And so this message is in all things, right? It portrays in all aspects.
Because we're communal beings. You know, by nature, we're communal beings. We want to be in community. We want to fit in. We want to get along because we want to connect. We really are all. We really are all one. The interesting thing is how can you recognize that you are one with all of life, with every single thing in existence, while still owning your own unique identity.
Yes.
That is a whole nother training. But that's a little bit of the aspect that we wanted to bring to this video of how absolutely we do get to witness all that's going on in our world and see where it feels good to be in community and to be communal and to not just to fit in just because.
Don't follow the crowd.
Yeah, just to follow the crowd.
Choose to ask questions or clarify and get clear for yourself. And one thing I want to add to when you said that is the truth is it's not hard to be your own unique individual. It's the easiest thing ever, because you are your own unique individual. The moment you stop trying to be like anything and everything else, that is like how you were tapped into your truth. And so yes, there's a whole nother level of depth we could go to that. Yeah, the other thing that we wanted to share, you want to talk about our last meditation?
Oh yeah.
So
it was you want
go for it.
So the last one was about activating
joy,
activating serene joy, total joy, and being able to let go of suffering, like living a life free, completely free of suffering, and even being able to see just the illusion of suffering, and being able to even look at the cosmic joke and kind of laugh at it lightly. You know, not laugh at someone else's suffering and be incompassionate, but just to recognize, like, you know, this is temporal.
How we create suffering.
It's a temporal. Nothing is permanent. Nothing is permanent.
Everything
this is a temporal. It's a temporal world. Everything is changing. This is an illusion. We are in the Maya, and when you can recognize that, then to hold on to this like darkness and pain and why me, it gets kind of silly. You know, you can see the silliness of it. Now, granted, Marci and I have been through some dark times when laughing at it just didn't feel right. That wasn't where we were at. I believe we're continuing to evolve and ascend to that ability more and more. So,
well, the more that you recognize it, the more that you evolve, you realize it is just a big cosmic joke. I love that as I take my peeps down into the jungles or do journeys and everything. It's like we're awakened to a whole nother level of truth in the hologram to go, oh my gosh, the big fucking cosmic joke here that I didn't even realize I was, you know, playing.
Taking everything so seriously.
And
the first time I came out of a DMT experience, it's just like I was just laughing my ass off, just complete tears of joy. It's like, what are we making such a big deal out of everything for?
Anyway, what we found was interesting is we do this activation, and the whole thing is, you know, we go through all these processes to align to, like, literally align to our highest self, being this being of divine joy, and, you know, smiling, and it's like laughing at it and being in happiness. And there were some people that went into some like depths of like sorrow and crying and like purging. And the thing is,
calling out the name
yeah,
of Amma,
and the part to this, I mean, obviously if it's like when it's my groups and my peeps, like there's people to it, we can assist through these processes. And part of us was like, is anyone going to help this person?
Right, do we go over?
And and also honoring letting people be in their own process. That's very important, because you don't get to interrupt or jump into their process.
Right.
Yet what was there was, it was like interesting to hear how there's people laughing and there's people smiling and all this, and then there's a couple people that are just in depths of pain. And so
we're talking like full purging, like serious pain. She was
like
really
crying
out.
and just,
yeah,
and the thing that it's interesting. One part is how much we want to hold on to our suffering, how much sometimes we there's, and this is why the activation was there, was to like open ourselves up to be experiencing pleasure and joy in everything. And so how much we try, now look at your life and just how this might resonate for you, of how much you try to hold on to the hardship or the sacrifice or the suffering or the story or the paradigm or the parameter.
The little ways that you do it, as well as the big ways.
The micro is always the golden nugget.
Exactly.
And as you evolve more and more, clear your karma, evolve, you could put it either way. What you recognize is that it shows up in micro ways, because you don't need the big bitch slap, because you actually, I can see the little tiny thing that actually.
So the tiny ways that you're holding back from
so just notice that, because it was interesting to see how it's like, first my heart just felt for the person, being like that. There's obviously was still a real struggle and even experiencing joy, that instead of in that place of bliss and pleasure, they were crying out in pain. And it's also important to note that that is the only way we allow ourselves to get to joy, is that we get to feel through all things and move. And it was like, most likely she's never had the process or the experience to be able to move the dark energy so that she could arrive to a place of bliss and joy.
Yeah, at one point I almost felt like it almost sounded like quite literally that she was giving birth
you
to
said
joy.
That actually.
Like she was really, it sounded like she was giving birth. Like,
we were making light of our
that's
own,
how,
you were like, she's giving birth to joy.
That's what the sounds were
the
like.
Pain,
but I believe that, that was a movie. And so to be able to honor that, of course, to be able to honor her experience and respect that she was in a place where I clearly felt safe enough to be able to express that in the room. So that was beautiful. And then also to give some consideration and thought that when we just go through almost an hour-long process of tapping into our joy, it was actually one other person too. I feel like one person was like really purging, and one person was like crying out like the name of Amma in pain. So there's a couple people in the room, but it was just it's just beautiful to allow and express all things. But it made both of us think, because we kind of looked at each other and we're like,
remember those days when we tried to hold on to our suffering instead of surrendering and releasing and allowing the story to move, the paradigm to move, the pain to move, and to just laugh at it and to be in joy and pleasure. So those are two messages from just our last meditation experience that we wanted to share with you
literally
guys.
From like one part of this day.
And we've been here for like 2.5 weeks and had so many like things that we want to share, and we will be sharing soon. We just have not had been in it.
I believe these things kind of require a little bit of an incubation period, where it's like we get to kind of be with it ourselves and integrate for the message to become more clear for how we get to share it and when. So.
Yeah, you also surrender the whole process of what you're here for. I know I intended to be on my Gene Keys training with my peeps, and things showed up that was like, no, you just get to integrate. And it's like, okay. And then before we went to a beach resort for 2 days to integrate before we came here, because we've been heavily in it with at the temple and with Amma, and which, by the way, guys, I'm wearing, if you saw my post, this is the medallion that was manifested in front of us into form out of thin air and dropped into my hand. So we'll share more on that stuff later.
We'll share more about that, but if you just as a side, if you haven't seen the post, go check out. I shared it on my page.
Epic,
she
amazing.
Shared on her page.
We'll be sharing more about that stuff. But even in the beach resort, I actually started to pull up the video, and I was going to share some truths that were coming through, and then a whole wedding and massive music started, and I was like, okay, I get it. Like, I just get to be I just get to be in surrender and integrating too. So we just wanted to share this beautiful place with you guys. The oneness field. It's the again, where we're spending the last 4 days that we're here in activations and meditations from early morning till late at night. So we still get to go back for one more.
Good
this
sun
is the
gazing
perfect
time. So we're gonna go sun gaze.
Yeah. And we've seen monkeys carrying babies in the temple.
Yeah, there's been monkeys carrying babies in the temple.
Yes. Lots of fun.
What else was? Birds. That was one of. Well, anyway, more to come. So much stuff. I was about to start another 15-minute video.
Later. Awesome, guys. We love you. Power of choice is yours. Choose your best life. Lock it down.